Okay. All right. Well, hi everybody. Bit like Jack, apologies that I can't be with you in person today over in Perth, but I look forward to perhaps catching up with some of you that might be traveling over to Melbourne for AGIC this week. So, as Lyndon already mentioned, my presentation is going to be broadly about what's in the pipeline, but I'm also going to cover a couple of other things while I've got the opportunity today, which is to just briefly introduce the Grains Australia strategic plan, talk a little bit more broadly about what's happening in our classification group to give you an understanding of that before I dive into some more specifics about what's happening with barley classification, or malting barley classification more specifically, and also the barley industry strategic plan, which is currently underway, and I'll mention a couple of upcoming industry events at the end as well for your information. So I just wanted to briefly let everybody know that the Grains Australia strategic plan is now available. It's available on our website. I obviously don't have time and it's not in my scope to talk about that today. And I'm sure you'll hear it at some other presentations up and coming into the future, but I just wanted to let you know that that was there. This is, for those of you who don't know, I mean, sure most of you being over in WA would know Terry Enright, who is the chairperson of Grains Australia. So the strategic plan is available there. I'm sure you'll have access to these slides afterwards. So I've put the link there to help you find it. And now I'll just talk a little bit more about the new classification function as part of Grains Australia. And I just wanted to introduce you to the team. You've already been introduced to me, so we don't need to spend any more time on that, but I wanted to introduce you to Tanya Plain, who is our company and data administration officer. Tanya's come across with the Wheat Quality Australia business. So those of you who've had dealings with Wheat Quality Australia may know Tanya. Tanya will be covering all grains now with regards to data, and also is assisting managing some of the company administration as well. And some of you may be familiar probably only via email or maybe via Zoom with Alicia Vassos, who's our classification manager, barley and coarse grains. Alicia was previously the executive manager working with me at Barley Australia. She started during the pandemic, just over 2 years ago now. So unfortunately, neither of us have been too many places since then, but I'm sure you'll have the opportunity to meet Alicia in person in the not too distant future. And currently, some of you may have seen it, there's an advertisement out at the moment for classification and technical manager for wheat. So we'll be looking forward to welcoming a new addition to the team in the coming months. So with regard to an overview of the classification functions, so as Lyndon introduced early on, Barley Australia has now fairly recently merged into Grains Australia. All of our activities have merged across into Grains Australia, including all the barley, malting barley accreditation functions, which are continuing business as usual. We're still maintaining the Barley Australia branding and the Barley Australia malt accredited variety for the immediate future until such time as the brands are, and our process is synonymous with Grains Australia. So essentially everything is carrying on as it normally would. The program is well progressed, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about what's going through the pipeline shortly in the coming slides. And we've had MBIBTC meetings running this year, which have been going to schedule as well. So I guess in short, there's no changes. Everything is keeping to the normal timelines and carrying on with the normal processes. So pretty much the same story for Wheat Quality Australia, which is also now fully integrated into Grains Australia. All functions, again, for wheat are continuing business as usual. For those of you that have dealings in wheat as well, you'll probably be aware that a new master list is coming out shortly, in fact, next week on the 1st of August. So that will be continuing as it usually does. And the wheat variety classification panel meetings, for example, have been running to schedule. We just had one last week, and the next meeting will be coming up on the 31st of August. So in terms of future classification functions, those are the two fully operational classification functions, so to speak. We will have oats moving in the not too distant future. We've currently had planning discussions underway with GIWA Oats Council, AGIC and Intergrain, and we've started some preliminary planning for the basis of a classification system, and that work is currently underway, which is exciting. And with regard to pulses, we have commenced discussions with Pulse Australia. Pulse Australia have compiled a classification discussion paper, and they're currently leading industry consultation in that space. So Pulse Australia will lead the development of an agreed pulse classification framework for their industry, with the view that the implementation and the ongoing maintenance will become the remit of Grains Australia into the future. So now I'll spend a little bit more time on malt barley classification and what's happening in our 2022 program. So I just wanted to give you a bit of a recap because it's been a little while since I've had the opportunity to speak with the GIWA Forum. So pilot malting, it's now not so new. It's been with us for a few years now, which in some ways feels hard to believe, and in some ways it seems like it was always part of the program. So pilot malting, which as most of you would be aware is housed at Edith Cowan University, is a critical component of our program design and forms part of the stage 1 assessment. However, commercial malting, we really appreciate the support from all of our commercial maltsters. This is equally invaluable to our program and also critical to the design, and that constitutes part of the stage 2 evaluation and is really important to have that mix of the pilot and the commercial malting. So we really appreciate the support from our commercial maltsters. So the program that we have developed over the years is flexible and transparent, provides the MBIBTC with essential data to assist with accreditation decisions. It provides industry with information to help with variety adoption, and it supports long-term profitability for growers and the wider barley industry, and of course our customers of Australian malting barley. So really what we're trying to say is that malting barley accreditation is important and it's widely sought after, and we continue to seek feedback and improve the program to be offering value back to the industry. So I'm going to talk more about the specifics of varieties that have recently been through the program and are currently going through the program this year. So most of you probably would have caught up with the news back in March of what was happening with various varieties at different stages of the process, and we had 2 varieties that were accredited, Kiwi and Bottler. I think that probably these 2 varieties are ones that will not be taking up too much landscape in Western Australia, so I won't spend a lot of time on that, but there are links for information here if you'd like to find out a little bit more from the promoters and breeders of these varieties. So with regard to the varieties that are undergoing evaluation in stage 1 this year, you can see that we have a number of varieties largely from AGT and also one from Intergrain going through stage 1 this year, with 3 of those being new entries into 2022. So I'm not going to read out, you can see all the details there, so I'm not going to read it out word for word, but the point is that whilst you may sit back and think, oh, that's another year of a lot of varieties coming through the program, there's actually a lot of different variation there between the agronomic zones that they're best suited to, quality attributes around fermentability and DP, for example, and also these last 2 varieties here that have been submitted by AGT having a non-glycosidic nitrile trait, which is potentially of interest to the distilling industry. So there's a range of different varieties to suit the needs of growers in different areas, to suit the needs of customers in different areas, whether they be domestic or international. It's really dependent on their brewing style as opposed to their geographic location. So having a range of varieties come through the program doesn't mean that we're guaranteeing market success for these varieties, but it does mean that we are providing options and choices for both the growers and the market, and those factors will determine their own pathway forward. We are ensuring that these varieties are fit for purpose, which is that they're suitable to make malt and beer. So again, coming into stage 2, we have 3 varieties coming through the program this year. And you can see there's a range of different attributes, both quality and agronomic, for these varieties. So there's no one that's the same here. So they will suit a range of different purposes, which I think is fantastic because it's giving the industry choices, and it's giving, as I said before, different areas of the industry varieties that are best suited to their environment or their customer base. Sorry, I've accidentally skipped over a slide. We do have a couple of varieties that unfortunately didn't have grain available to continue assessment this year, so they'll be moving on with their assessment in either 2023 or 2024, depending on availability of grain. So what happens after the variety is accredited? Well, we're trying to increase our level of support in this area. It is an initiative that we've been working on for a couple of years now, and it is for newly accredited varieties that are not yet established in the market. So with the additional benefit of having pilot malting evaluation, which can provide us with non-commercially sensitive data, we have the opportunity to, where space permits in the program, to do some additional evaluation and get some extra batches of information to supplement any commercial data that may be shared in confidence that can be used in a broader data set that's not identified, and that's at the discretion of the maltster. And this information can then be made available to the industry and to customers in the form of what we're calling a malt performance summary. So I have an example of where we're at with what we're calling a tier 1 malt performance summary on the next slide, if you haven't seen it yet. So really this, while we've got 2 different tiers, is that this first format is what is suitable to present information from a limited data set, because as you can imagine, even with the addition of some pilot malting batches, there's fairly limited data available in those early year or 2 after a variety is accredited. So it's hard to build up a big set of data very quickly. So we had to look at a format that provided useful information and accurate information on a limited data set that could be suitable for public release. So we have released a first version of that, which is with Maximus. And that is available on the Bali Australia website, which is still live with all the information as we transition into the future with consolidating all of that under a Grains Australia website. So for now, you can still find all of the information that you have been used to being able to find at the Bali Australia website. And sorry, I've just quickly mentioned the tier 2 malt performance summary before I show you the tier 1. So we're hoping that we might be able to also put together a more detailed malt performance summary with some more statistics and broader data sets. However, this is under development and really it is quite dependent, and it will be dependent from variety to variety, from year to year, as to how quickly this information can be built up, because it will get to the point where a variety is established in the market and this is no longer required. The maltsters and the customers will be well familiar with it. So it's all about the timing as well. It has to be appropriate for timing. So it's something that we're considering and we're watching, and we're trying to build up enough data to put forward a broader set of data with some higher level statistics, but we'll just have to see how that goes from a timing perspective. So hopefully you can see this okay on your screen. I'm not going to read the whole thing out. As I said, you can access it on our website if you haven't seen it already. We do reference back to the breeder or the seed promoter in this case, which is obviously Intergrain, where you can find more agronomic, well, all the agronomic details and any other information on that variety that you're looking for from that breeder or seed promoter, which is here we're sticking to talking about malt quality. And this is just core malt quality, obviously not trying to report on every type of parameter. So you'll see here that we have a benchmark variety as well. So the reason that we've done this, it's not to compare or to pitch varieties against each other and say that one is better than the other or anything like that. It is more to be able to choose a current variety that customers and the market, the traders are familiar with, that they understand its performance, and they can look at the new variety and gauge where that might fit for who they're trying to sell it to, or what customer, what maltster might be wanting to buy it for a particular brewer. So it's just giving them a point of reference. And as you can see, there's only 12 data points, so we can't present statistics, and we do have a disclaimer down here that this is a guide on a very small set of data in the early stages of this variety being available. So, but we think it's important and that it's valuable to give people an idea of what these new varieties look like. And we're certainly interested to get people's feedback, and we'll certainly be working on developing these for the newer varieties coming out as well into the future. Obviously, subsequent to having a suitable number of data sets available, hopefully in the first 1 to 2 years after a variety is released. So now I just wanted to quickly mention where we're at with our barley industry strategic plan, which we commenced under Bali Australia days. Some of you may have been involved in this process already. We've had a series of industry focus groups which were held late in 2021 across a number of areas. We had a grower productivity group, breeder and researcher, maltster and brewer, trade, marketing and market access, and the feed industry groups. So we really appreciate the support of all of those people that joined those groups and helped us kick off this process. Since then, we've also carried out a SWOT session, which was a really successful session that we were a little concerned of how that would go, trying to run that via online platform. However, it went really well, much better than we could imagine. We had great cross-industry representation. in this process. Post that as well, we also had Barley Council participation. And then a ranking exercise was carried out and is now complete for all of those priorities that were identified in the different areas of the SWOT. So we really thank industry for their excellent support and engagement thus far with the exercise. We're continuing to work through all of this information that's come out of the ranking exercise and moving on with developing the next steps. We've actually got a consultant to help us with this, Dr. Steve Jeffries, who I'm sure most of you would be familiar with. So we've got a couple of meetings coming up in the next few weeks to continue on with this process and the planning, and we'll also be giving a presentation on where things are at the Bali Tech Symposium in August. So speaking of the Bali Tech, I just wanted to quickly, at the end of my presentation here, give a plug for the Bali Tech Symposium, which is coming up in just a few weeks' time on the Gold Coast. So I know that things are getting a little bit iffy again with COVID numbers. So if you don't think you can actually get there in person, you can register for the virtual component of the conference. So both of those options are still open for registration at the moment, and all the details and the program are available on the website. And then a little bit further into the future, I just thought I'd put on your radar that the Asia Pacific, the IB Institute of Brewing and Distilling, will be having their 37th convention here in Adelaide in 2023. So that's not too far away, and details will be starting to pop up on the Institute of Brewing and Distilling website about the program in the coming months. So if you're interested at that, stay tuned on that website. Other than that, I just want to thank you for your time today and look forward to taking any questions.
All right, do we have any questions for Megan? David Modi.
Hi Megan, I don't want to put you on the spot on this one, but just in terms of Grains Australia and its roles going into the future, as you know, two of the important functions of GIWA are in terms of the receivable standards and also the variety rationalisation discussions that we have about segregations for varieties. Can you answer whether or not discussions on receivable standards are on the agenda for something that gets incorporated under Grains Australia banner, or can you say that no, that's not on the agenda and that's a function that will stay outside Grains Australia?
Thanks, David. Look, as far as I know, it's not on the agenda at the moment. Obviously, as you know, Grain Trades Australia has one part of the standards. So certainly they are continuing as they have been and managing all of those processes at the moment. So it's not to say that there may have been some discussions. I certainly haven't been involved in any. I'm not aware of any plans at this point in time for that, David, but I imagine that this will continue to evolve and discussions about what fits where will continue into the future, particularly as we bring more and more functions and commodities on board. But certainly from a classification point of view, that's not something that I'm aware of in anything that we're discussing at the moment in our team, in any case.
Sorry, it's Peter Nash here. Just from discussions with the board level of Grains Australia, no, there's certainly no, Grains Australia doesn't intend to play in the receivable standard space at all. So it'll be business as usual in WA for GIWA's involvement in both the variety rationalisation process and also in receivable standards.
I'd like you all to put your hands together and thank Megan, please.
Thanks, everyone.